What's up, guys? It's Jensen and welcome to another video. So obviously last year the LA Rams had a disappointing season. And while not all the blame is on Jared Goff, there's certainly a lot of blame that has to go on Jared Goff. I mean, let's be honest now, he's a system quarterback and Sean McVay's system got solved last year. Now, I think that Sean McVay is an offensive genius and he's going to turn it around. He's going to fix up his offense. He's going to add some new kinks into the offense and they're going to be ready to go next season. But I don't know if Jared Goff is going to be ready to go next season. And that's a problem. When we look at this guy, he's a renowned choker. And that was not any more evident than in the Super Bowl 2 years ago when the LA Rams offense put up 3 points under him in that Super Bowl. And even though that defense did its job, it stopped that New England offense to 13 points. The goal for Jared Goff, just put up 14 points and you're a Super Bowl champion. He couldn't do that. And I've always had my questions about Jared Goff. He clearly benefits from the system. And when Todd Gurley is stopped, as the Chicago Bears showed 2 years ago, and that's really what started the solution finding for all these NFL teams as to how to solve the Los Angeles Rams. When Todd Gurley is not working well, then Jared Goff, we truly see what he is. And that's a league average at best quarterback. That's maybe going to cut it if he performed at his best. He actually looks like an above average quarterback. But how do we know he's going to perform at his best? And while I think that Jared Goff should be the starter heading into this season, that doesn't mean that I don't think they should add some legit competition at QB to challenge Jared Goff. And I know what some of y'all are thinking. Blake Bortles is the competition. Stop with that nonsense. You think Blake Bortles is challenging anyone? You think anyone is scared of Blake Bortles? You'll wonder why Jared Goff wasn't really scared. He wasn't really trying to improve his game last season. Probably was because Blake Bortles was the quarterback. They weren't going to bench him for Blake Bortles. So they got to add some real QB competition. If Blake Bortles is the competition, might as well put me at quarterback at backup. I mean, that's not real competition. That's why I think that they should sign Case Keenum. Now, obviously, he's not perfect. He's had 2 dud seasons, first in Denver, last year in Washington. And obviously there are some concerns. But that's what you're going to get with the guy who you get on the cheap in free agency. Part of the reason why you'll get Case Keenum so cheap in free agency is because he has these concerns for 2 seasons in a row where he has looked less than stellar. But let's remember 2017, guys. That was a magical year. And remember, he didn't start the whole year, but he had around 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Some people thought he was an MVP candidate. Now, I wouldn't have gone that far. I don't think he was an MVP candidate, but he was certainly spectacular. He operated like one of the best quarterbacks that year. And the Minnesota Vikings, they got to the NFC Conference Championship. And when we look at that team on offense, obviously their skill position weapons were spectacular. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, obviously, lethal wide receiver combo from year to year. When we look at Kyle Rudolph, the solid tight end, we know that he can make some plays. But when we look at the offensive line, we weren't exactly raving about them a couple years ago, let me remind you. They weren't exactly elite or spectacular. When we look at the running game, Dalvin Cook got injured at the beginning of that season. It was Latavius Murray carrying the ball for Minnesota. And while he wasn't a scrub by any stretch of the imagination, only had about 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. He wasn't exactly a bell cow. He wasn't exactly a Derrick Henry per se. So there is that to consider. Case Keenum didn't exactly have perfect circumstances like a Jimmy Garoppolo when he made that run. He had less than perfect circumstances, but Pat Shurmur made an offense that worked around him. He made some quick throws, but he also made some big plays, and Minnesota Vikings were successful. They also had a great defense. When we look at the LA Rams, they have similar traits. I mean, when we look at the wide receiver trio of Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, I don't think there's a better trio in the NFL. They're absolutely spectacular. The combo of Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett at tight end, those dudes can make plays, especially Higbee, who turned on late in the season last season. And then when we look at a running game, while Todd Gurley took a step back, I think that if you add another running back maybe in the draft to put in the committee with Todd Gurley, they can look respectable on the run. And even though the offensive line's on the decline a little, I think the Rams could maybe do something. You know, Les Snead is obviously one of the better GMs in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled something off during the draft, maybe get a nice offensive lineman in there. And the offensive line seemed to actually come together toward the end of the season for the LA Rams. It was just a little too late. So when we look at the LA Rams, even though Jared Goff should be the starter, I think that if you put Case Keenum in, and we know Sean McVay, it's about this system in LA more than the quarterback. This isn't a case of the Houston Texans where Deshaun Watson is the system, or, a place like Carolina in the past where Cam Newton was the system. No, Sean McVay is the system for LA. You can put a guy like Case Keenum in there, and he can have similar success because Case Keenum is the typical system quarterback. So I think that would work for all sides. That defense is obviously spectacular. When we look at Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, guys like that, they should step back and improve next season on defense. I think that this makes sense for all sides. So I think this should happen, and this actually might make Jared Goff a better QB. Having a guy like Case Keenum as a backup, you can learn some things from Case Keenum, and I think it would work for all sides. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Please like and subscribe. I'll be providing more NFL and NBA hot takes as the season goes on, and have a good day.